Recording in progress. My name is Abby Greer. I'm in Kent, Ohio, and I am part of the timebanks.org team. Let me hit the got it button. And I also want to introduce the other members of our timebanks.org team, starting with Krista Wyatt, if you could give a wave.
Hello.
Yes. And Pam De Ocampo. There's Pam, letting folks in from the waiting room. And Eric Bachman.
Hello, greetings everybody.
With some pretty amazing rainbow suspenders I see there, Eric. Those are nice. And then of course I'll introduce Chris and Edgar Kahn in a moment, but real quick to introduce the call, as most of you know, we've been celebrating with these town hall calls in the last few months our 5 core values, because we know that our core values are traits or qualities that represent time banking's highest priorities, deeply held beliefs, and they really provide a foundation for building our communities. Really quick, just a friendly reminder that this call has been a safe place where we hear each other's stories with no judgment, but this is a group call, so we don't want to recruit others to take action. And if you're a coordinator of a time bank and you're seeking some more knowledge about running and managing your time bank, we suggest that you join the Time for All Time Bank, because we are doing some amazing monthly calls just to support the coordinators. So a little bit different kind of call than what we're doing today. So we are continuing our discussion today about that 4th core value, social networks. And before I turn the call over to Chris, I just want to say that I found this little nugget. I'm sorry, I don't know what time bank it came from, but as the founder of a time bank myself, these beautiful 5 core values, we found ourselves sort of writing them and rewriting them and fitting them into this nice thing that we could sort of market and put on little flyers and put on cards. So it's a wonderful little practice to do because you're always thinking differently about our core values. But I found this definition of social networks, and I just thought it was really beautiful and kind of simple. So I'd like to read that just to get our minds going about this core value. And they said, for a time bank to work effectively, it has to be a network of mutual support. Stronger bonds are formed among the members as they help each other in various ways. Eventually, the whole community is held together by strong ties among participants. I just like that. It rang very true from our local time bank here and many stories that we've heard. So now I'm going to turn the call over to Chris and Edgar to hear their thoughts. And just a reminder, we have Catalina from Hawaii, who is going to share her story. Chris, when you and Edgar are done, we'll turn it over to Catalina, and then I'll have you open the call to hear other thoughts and comments.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you so much, Abby. So I'm just going to say a few words and then turn over to Edgar. Are you good with that?
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. So we should just note Edgar has not been very, very well. So he's emerging from that not wellness, but I think you're feeling good to do that.
Well, it's joyous to be here and to feel less alone.
Yeah. So what I'm going to say is actually harken back to what Abby just said about the fact that we've played with these core values, the definitions of them over and over and over again. And we've had people say to us, can you not just do the branding thing and stick with a certain set of nice, precise words that we can all use? And that probably would be a brilliant idea, but we've never been able to do it, truthfully. We just haven't made it happen. So one of the things that has varied on this 4th core value is sometimes we would go back and forth. Should it be networks or should it be community? And of course, those two things are kind of similar. And your definition, Abby, combined the both. It said if we form strong networks, we'll strengthen our community. I just want to have a little word about this notion of community, and then I'll hand over to Edgar. Because I was talking with somebody today about belonging, and there's belonging and then there's not belonging. And they sort of come together like a horse and carriage, you know, there's a lot belonging and not belonging. And I think that time banking is very sensitive to the fact that some people can feel like they're not belonging. And that the aim with these little time credits and doing an hour for an hour and helping others is to constantly be seeing and thinking, how can we make it so that people feel they will belong? And that is not always easy to do, because our society sends out messages over and over and over again saying, you don't quite fit, or you don't belong, or we've got a little group here and it's not for you, it's for us. And so with time banking, I think it behooves us to be very careful when we think about community, that it's inclusive, and that as we build networks, we do so in that inclusive way. Somebody is calling us right now. So with that, I'm going to pass over to Edgar.
Well, the word that comes to my mind as we gather is trust. There's a presumption that we may be strangers, but we're strangers who do not feel at risk sharing our personal lives, sharing our needs, sharing our dreams, and that there's no vulnerability in that, that all of us are here in some sense to create a world which is more than the sum of its parts. So that just as friendships do that, a friendship that is make the world better is a different kind of catalyst. And I think all of us feel that by coming together, we're making a statement. We're making a statement that trust and a shared belief that collectively we can make a difference is a very powerful kind of empowerment. And it's in some sense the opposite of market, where value is defined by price. And we know each hour that we give is not defined by price. It's our slice of eternity, and it's our slice of eternity shared with others who are willing to share their slice of eternity. So we're in a totally different domain. And I think that the core values that we have and that we try to advance are in fact a dynamic force for change. With that, I'm going to say we want to hear stories, because it's the stories that connect people. It's the stories that send out a message that say, not only can I help somebody, but I'm willing to accept help from somebody who may be a stranger. The whole element of trust that we start with really has not been violated in all these years of people who were willing to go at risk and share their problems and accept help, because accepting help represents a statement of faith in others that you may not know. You don't ask for their credentials, you don't ask for their resumes. You simply say we're part of a collective community that cares for itself and cares for each other.
That was lovely, dear. I love the fact that you picked up on trust in that way. That was so nice. I think we've said our piece, and we're all excited to hear a story from Catalina. She is from Hawaii, so wow, we are looking forward to that story.
Yeah.
And there's a little one beside you.
I know.
Yes, this is Kaimana.
Hello,
Aloha, everyone.
We're glad you're here. So Catalina, welcome. I don't have like a bio to introduce you, so I'm just gonna let you introduce yourself. And when you're ready, or I could actually do it now, I can share my screen, because she has a really beautiful little slideshow that I think captured all of our hearts. And we were like, we need her to tell this story.
Well, I guess I'll just Well, my name is Catalina Tiamson. Hi, Sandy. I see St. People. Whoop, whoop. I love you all. And this is just such an amazing thing for me to see.
We miss you.
Oh, I miss you too. Oh, this is going to be the second time I'm going to cry on this call already. Okay. But I am the executive director of a nonprofit called Everyday Hero Project. And we support residents and their dreams to make the world better, because it shouldn't be that hard. So we help to provide fiscal sponsorship and office space and all the things that made it hard for me when I was trying to make a difference. And that's why time making has been so significant in everything that we've been doing. So you can go ahead and share your screen. Thank you, Abby.
Okay. And
so I actually created this slideshow because of the Kokua Exchange launch here in East Hawaii. And we inserted this into the presentation so we could help people understand how this narrative goes from somebody who has no idea what time making is to somebody who is doing what I'm doing today. So in 2015, actually, I was in St. Petersburg, Florida, and I happened to meet an amazing woman at a booth. Her name was BJ, and she was talking about the Tampa Time Bank. And I just stood in front of her. I had been on tour for years and have been trying to really help people understand what time and currency is all about. And I just sat there with tears streaming down my eyes when I was listening to what she was talking about. And I attended a potluck with Kaimana, actually. She was in a stroller about the Tampa Time Bank that was in downtown St. Petersburg. But it was kind of far over the bridge. And so it didn't really come into my life until the next slide. When BJ approached me the year afterwards and said, hey, would Everyday Hero Project be interested in fiscally sponsoring the St. Pete Time Bank? And I said, absolutely, I totally want to do this. I'm just stuck on the side of the bridge because I have a baby. So we did. And over the years, to the next slide, now this number is much larger now. In just 5 short years, 30,000 hours have been exchanged. And so when I try to explain to people, what does this number mean to you? I don't think that it can be explained unless it's explained with interactions and pictures. So go to the next slide. So it didn't actually my head took a long time to wrap around it. So even though I helped BJ in 2016, I really didn't start using it until 2017 when BJ was like, Catalina, you do so much for the community. This is what time banking is for. What in your life do you need help with? And it's laundry, right? I have so many things going on, the whole folding laundry. So this is actually a screenshot. And this was a significant time in my life because after this moment, it was not that often that I had to fold my own laundry. People would come over to my house. I would prepare them tea and stuff. And then they would fold my laundry while they watched movies and hung out. And that's BJ there. So, these mundane chores have really, I've seen how they can become community builders through the time bank. And this is a shot of people. I was 8 months pregnant and moved into a house, and these wonderful ladies showed up and helped organize and helped us. Because I felt like I was bending down, and they're like, "What are you doing? We're gonna come over." It's I feel like I'm gonna give birth after all the organizing I did yesterday. And then to the next. And actually, my second chance at love with my new husband and my baby, we're actually a time bank family, a time bank love story, because I put a call out for, I wanted to switch my room and have the room I always dreamed about, which was, the small room with the whole thing was a bed and really cool decorated. So I put a call out, can people help me with figuring out how to do this project? And so people in the time bank went and picked up paint for me. And then my husband now, he answered the call, the request for help painting. And over a period of 3 days, my husband and I fell in love. So it's a time bank love story. And then I will never forget, because we had a whirlwind ceremony about 8 months later, because, you know, we were crazy enough to say, let's do a sunrise ceremony. It will be awesome. And that's awesome in theory until you're about to leave for your wedding and you look at your house and know you're coming back from the honeymoon and it's just wrecked because the wedding party has been there. There's like stuff everywhere. And our time bank angel, Joey Untsmore, she came in and she cleaned our whole place after. And when we got back, not only was it clean, but she left us with cute little non-alcoholic present there so we could celebrate since we were pregnant with the baby. And then on the next slide. And then I will never forget. Now, Sandy Bigler took this and kept going with this. And I thought it was amazing because one of my friends in the time bank, Jen, she knew that I was going to have my 3rd C-section. I was also getting surgery for like getting everything closed up because I'm like not having any more babies. And she put out this request for a meal trade. And for 3 weeks straight, where I could barely move and my stomach hurt so badly, lunch and dinner were prepared for my whole family of 5. And that was so significant for us, so significant that when my best friend in St. Pete and from over here, she recently had a baby, I put a call out and said, hey, can we do a meal train for Taylor? And Sandy picked up the call and she created the meal train so we could like keep that going. And that made such a big difference. And then of course, you know, there's the little baby that came out of the time bank love. And we got some childcare while we were doing things around the house to help with her. So the baby carriage. Baby's end. Okay, next slide. And so this just showed, this was like 1 week, and we were just trying to show people an example of how the volunteers that came and helped us through the time bank affected the nonprofit. This is just Thursdays, there was a cleanup in St. Pete. Friday, we had a joint event with Greenpeace USA, and there was time bank volunteers at that, time bank volunteers giving education at the camping trip afterwards. There's BJ leading an activation, and then we had to pick up the Pete cleanup. So over that period of Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4 days, there was probably something like 150 hours exchanged just in 4 days. And then I like to let everyone know how significant it was. Go ahead to the next slide. For us and for our business to help everybody. So through the time bank, we were, and all of our networks, our social networking, which Abby was talking about, you know, these coalition teams of organizations and individuals that have assets and may not be aligned in their missions all the time, but an event happens and then boom, we're all on the same page. So 400,000 pounds of supplies delivered across the United States. We hosted 3 activation retreats and we did hurricane relief all over the southeastern United States. And this was all, a lot of this was like time bank supplies that had been collected. And then of course, on the next page, we had a complete makeover with our graphic design. So that changed with our website and the logo. And so that really affected how people understand Everyday Hero Project. If you look at the logo on the left, you're like, okay, people that love the earth. Yes. And I can get it from the banner, what they're trying to do. But when you look on the right side, you can see the intergenerational component is like, oh, and then you see that the light bulbs that are activating everyone, they're in different places of our body, just kind of like how we are with our different talents and our different things that we have to offer. And next page. And so we finally did it. We ended up moving to East Hawaii, and it was like a surprise. The timing really helped us out there too. We ended up getting the call to move, and then the time bank people helped us pack all of our stuff, clean up our house, and like we had just had the baby, so it was like, wow, you guys, thank you so much. So we came out here, and this room that I'm in right now, this was a storage room for 30 years that my landlord had, and it was the time bank guys. 3 guys came in here. They each put in 5 time bank hours and turned out the whole office. They helped him unload all the stuff, blow this place out, unroll the carpet, place all the furniture. And so it was really beautiful. It was unexpected that I was actually going to be doing time banking here. So I was just sharing with them that I was a little bit sad that I wasn't sure if time banking was going to be part of my life here. And what happened is the Kokua Exchange was already an existing time bank here in Hawaii, but they actually reached out. I think they reached out to you guys, right? Like to pair them up with somebody. So they got paired up with BJ to help get some time bank mentorship. And BJ said, "Are you kidding me? Catalina just moved there like a couple months ago." So we got together and now it is exploding. So in May of this year, Kokua Exchange had 21 recorded hours on the books, and we are now somewhere over 800. So we just really, truly try to help people understand what it is and really embody what time banking is. It's a more rural place. So we recently held, we got a grant from AARP, and AARP was giving grants for me to do activations for all of the islands. And so luckily, we ended up with somebody that said, "Hey, I would like to do a time bank activation on Lanai. Can we do a virtual one?" And actually nobody ended up coming. And I said, "Great, we can use the time to talk to each other, what we can do for you." And she said, "The problem is that like people just need to see it. People on Lanai don't want to join a Zoom call." So I just happened to be going to Maui next week. She just happened to tell me that there's a ferry that goes from Maui to Lanai. So we are actually going to Maui next week. We're going to do a cleanup event on both sides of the islands. And so we're going to be calling it the Ferry Merry Cleanup. I love that. So I think it's so funny. And we're going to do a time bank blitz on Lanai. So we're going to do 4 events in 7 hours and kind of launch that whole thing over there and try to trailblaze inter-island exchange, because I'm so excited for each and every one of you to come here to Hawaii and start doing some exchanges and checking out what we got here. So thank you. That's it.
Oh my, Catalina, do you have a twin that might want to come to Kent?
Well, I would just like to eventually like hop on the BJ train and be traveling and see all of you guys, because the latest and last piece of news that I will give you, which is very exciting news, is that one of the major leaders who is creating the United Indigenous Nations, whom I've been working with since 2009, he has like 38,000 groups globally with all the different nations. He used to be an intertribal judge of the North American continent. He reached out and said, "Can you help us launch a time bank?"
Oh my gosh.
I'll be calling you guys about that, because we're going to go on a First Nations tour and launch 38,000 community time banks under the United Indigenous Nations.
Oh, I have so many goosebumps, and I'd love to, Chris, if you and Edgar could unmute, I'd love to hear your thoughts from here.
Well, that's such a dream come true, that we could help empower the tribes and help empower those indigenous networks of governance that are different from the Bureau of Indian Affairs, but that represent people coming together and drawing upon their own cultural traditions, and not only drawing upon them, but passing them on to their kids so that they don't get lost in the world of money and commerce. And so the world of success is not about money. It's about preserving something that's very precious and celebrating that. And I think trying to preserve and memorialize what you're doing is very, very important, because we are more than what the market tells us we are. We are more than simply available if we're cheap enough. We are, in fact, the time we have that we spend with each other is priceless, and it's our piece of eternity. And celebrating that really bonds with spiritual movements. I'm going to be trying to introduce time banking in the congregation that I'm part of, because I think that it's one thing for people to come together once a week to pray, and it's another thing for people to come together and feel they're part of an extended family that can be here for each other. And so I think we need to keep celebrating what we're doing and others will follow. And I think also we need to cultivate the media to share the stories, because the media is great on bad stories, but it's not so good on good stories.
So you've just blown us away, Catalina. That is so wonderful.
It is.
Both what you've been doing and going to Hawaii and linking up with a beginning time bank there and saying, hey guys, I know how to do this. Because one thing that we all know is starting up a time bank can be a real challenge. And there's some people who are gifted at it. BJ happens to be one of them. It sounds like you happen to be another one of them too, because we were hearing in your story actually that people will love the idea, but actually diving into the action can be a little scary if they've never done something like that before. And you're sharing how you got all of that help. I can't imagine that it wouldn't inspire so many people to say, I can do that. I can receive help like she received help. That was absolutely brilliant. And to think that you met your husband because he was helping you through a time bank, that is just amazing. What a lovely story. That is so cool.
And it's so funny because we actually knew each other already, but it was because we've known each other for like a few years.
Yeah.
And it was only because of that exchange of that painting time that we actually fell in love.
Wow, that is amazing. Just before you say something to that, I just want to say something about that, because people have said so many times, and I think we'll get nods from all of you here because you've all done this. When you do a time bank exchange, it opens up a different kind of energy. It's like one of you is giving, the other is receiving, and you're both open in a different way than, I mean, that happens in life, but it very explicitly happens. I'm open to your giving, I'm open to your receiving, and it's a lovely moment. So in those 3 days of that, you got to just so totally get to know each other in a different way. That's absolutely beautiful.
I wanted to add, there are also cultural traditions. I don't know whether you tapped into them explicitly or not, but in Hawaii, there have always been traditions of helping that you're in effect reviving and preserving, and that this becomes a way of speaking to the unique character and quality and importance of what you're doing. It's not something that you imported, it's something that is in fact making that history come alive and giving it a new life.
Wow. Well, thank you. I know there will be others who would love to follow up and ask you questions or make comments to you, Catalina. So why don't we open it up? And maybe in the chat already, some people have already made some comments. I'm looking myself into the chat. I'm nearsighted and I cannot see the chat here, but maybe Abby, you can see if some people would like to jump in with their own thoughts on this one.
I am watching the chat, and if you would like to just unmute yourself, or you could raise your hand, or you could type in the chat. I feel like we're getting a good flow to the town hall calls, so if somebody wants to respond or share.
Or put up a hand is always a good thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
all right.
I think Angela, if you want to unmute yourself, there you go.
I'm thrilled by your announcement, Catalina. It just stirs my heart. It's wonderful. We're playing around. I'm in Sebastopol, Sonoma County, north of the Golden Gate Bridge, and I'm really interested in learning more from you about your working with the nonprofits. That's something we're exploring here in a new way, but I would love to know how you had your back-to-back, how that all worked in working with Greenpeace. You said Greenpeace and other organizations.
Well, really, it was getting the other organizations to sign up for the time bank is actually a lot easier because organizations wish that they could pay back volunteers somehow. So if an organization knows that, hey, if this person comes to volunteer for me, then somebody will watch their baby 2 days from now. And so that was a major way that we helped nonprofits kind of decide to come in, as well as, you know, helping the nonprofits understand that there's like, so recently we had a nonprofit in Oahu say, okay, yeah, like I have a media nonprofit. We're always looking for volunteers. Like, how can we make this a cycle? And so we came up with the idea that the media nonprofit would offer an introductory class for time credits on media production. And then they would pay them for the media class, but then voila, suddenly they have 20 people who are volunteers who are trained to do exactly what they trained them to do. And so in that way, everybody is receiving something there. So it's kind of a matter of, you know, really recently we've had, because the thing that's different about Kokua Exchange is it's a statewide, and that's why it was having a hard time launching. It wasn't localized in every place until I came on. And so people were looking at offers and requests and then getting frustrated because the person was on another island. And so they were spending all this time like, oh, I don't even want to filter through this anymore. So people were just giving up. So once we launched a virtual series, there was one series that we launched that was especially just for organizations. So within that time, we got that conversation going with the organizations. What are the kinds of things that you want to offer, you know, and also what do you have for natural disaster purposes? You have a storage building or something that could be key. And we wouldn't know that unless you signed up in the time bank. And so it's just really, for me, it's really taking the lens and looking at that nonprofit and helping them see the beautiful things that they have, they may not have understood as time banking assets until somebody who is a time banker had a conversation with them.
Right. So you had to sit down with a group of nonprofits and to just explore how you could collaborate and
well, what I can do is I will grab the chats. I created 3 different Canva presentations that you can click. And so this time bank story is actually a click in part of it. I created one for residents, one for organizations, and one for possible time bank coordinators. Wow. And so we took them through those slides, and within those slides, I don't know if you guys have ever used the tool, the Jamboard. Nope. You've ever used a Jamboard before? So if you look in Gmail, has like you know, it has all the Gmail things like the Excel stuff. Well, keep scrolling down and there's a thing called the Jamboard in there. When you click it open, it looks like a whiteboard and people can click on a thing that looks like a little piece of paper, which is like a sticky note. So that is that activity that we always all do at all the potlucks where there's the whiteboard and people put their sticky notes, but then it's virtual. And you can save it. And every time you have a new one, you don't create a new Jamboard, you just add on to this Jamboard. So when new organizations and new residents look at this Jamboard, it helps to solidify and help them understand, oh, this is what this is. This is an offer pool. So I'll put those links right now in the chat.
That's a terrific iteration.
Yeah. Yes, yes. So there must be, thank you so much, Kathleen. That is so amazing. It's funny how there's the idea of, and not funny at all, it is how it is. There's the idea of time banking, which is so beautiful. And then there's making it happen.
I think they froze for a second. Hopefully she'll come back. And maybe while we see if we can unfreeze, sorry to interrupt. Oh, we may have lost her altogether. They'll dial back in, but Sandy has said on the chat that she has a quick story to share. Sandy?
Hi, I'm Sandy, the chair of the St. Pete Time Bank. Hello, everyone. Hi, Catalina, you beautiful soul. Love you. Love all of you, actually. Thank you all for being such amazing people and going out and doing everything for your communities. Just wanted to give you guys an update on our community. We've been featured on the news lately, and we just did some filming on a TV show called Solutionaries, and we have a monthly podcast. So we're really bringing the virtual reality into St. Pete Time Bank, and we're growing members. Like we had, Donna, was it 21 members in one day?
I think it's up to 24 now.
24 new members since the broadcast of the
new signups.
New signups, yes. So we are really growing, rocking and grooving, and we're telling everybody. People reach out for me from all over the country asking, how can we get a time bank? And I send them to timebanks.org so they can start a time bank in their community. So we're just definitely throwing that information out there. And I just wanted to share that quick update with you guys.
Thank you so much, Sandy. I'm sorry, Chris and Edgar, you guys froze for a second, and Sandy had said she had a story.
Well, when we came back, Sandy was just introducing herself and saying that amazing news. That is fantastic.
That is great.
So when you've got so many new people joining, do you mobilize the members who are a time bank to welcome them? How do you say, hey, come on in, talking about this networking piece?
So we did a podcast Friday night, and I welcomed all the members that signed up. They're not official members yet. They have to go through our process, but I did welcome the new member signups in our podcast. And when they become full members, we send out welcome to the time bank letters, and we let other people know. But we're all about broadcasting our news all over the internet. So that's how we do it.
Wow, that's so good to hear. So who else I'm sure would love to talk to either what Sandy just shared or Catalina's shared so much with us tonight? Tamsin. Can Tamsin come on?
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Yes, I had a question for Catalina, and now I'm also excited about Sandy's story. This is all such great stuff. It's so inspiring, and it gives me inspiration to get started again on things. But Catalina, we do have in our time bank 40 different members that are organizations, and I work with the volunteer coordinators, because they are the ones that need the volunteers and seem to understand how this could benefit them. But I'm just wondering, did you start with working with the executive director of each nonprofit and then go to the volunteer coordinator? Or because what we do is we have them sign up as a member, and that requires the executive director to give that permission. And then we work with the volunteer coordinator so that they have a coordinator that'll post requests on our time bank when they need volunteers, so that we're not posting it, they're posting it, So I just wonder how you do that.
Well, it always happens differently. It depends on how the meetings are. Within the virtual presentation that was done, it was a representative from the company attended, and then took notes, grabbed the Canva presentation link, and then took it back to their organization with their take on it and whether or not they thought it would be a good idea. But it's kind of opposite for what's happening on Lanai. Because there was somebody that attended the plastic pickers in Paradise. And she was like, yeah, I really want to help my friend at the art center get her head wrapped around this. She runs Art After Dark, and she runs, she owns the art gallery. And so I was like, okay, well, next Friday, she's like, well, there's Art After Dark. And I was like, well, then we'll just bring a bunch of volunteers to go volunteer and set up her Art After Dark so she can see right in front of her what it is.
Cool.
Well, that's
great.
Yeah.
And then for Sandy, I was wondering, could we see the a link to the presentation that she was talking about, the news presentation? Is there a link that we could watch it?
Okay, so yeah, if you go to our Facebook page, St. Pete Time Bank Facebook page, the public one, it's right there. You can see the news, the information Bay News 9 did us. And I think BJ posted some pictures of the filming of Solutionaries, and our podcasts are on there too as well. Let me see if I can post it in the chat real quick. Give me one moment. And we're about to have another podcast here in just a second. So let me.
Tamsin, you were muted. You tried to say something.
Oh, I just posted the article that was on Catalyst called St. Pete Time Bank Hopes to Make the World a Better Place 1 hour at a time. So that's an article published 2 days ago. And I will tell you, I've been reading Time Bank news articles for 12 years, and this is absolutely one of the best ones I've ever read. It's very clear. And I told BJ, and she's like, oh yeah, well, you know, I've learned so much from other. Okay. So the point is there was a really good journalist writing this. So often they get it wrong and they think Time Bank is barter, or they say it's all free. And it's like, no, they just put some spin on it that you weren't planning on. So if you get a chance, read that article. As far as the podcast though, Sandy is suggesting maybe go to their St. Pete Facebook page.
Thank you.
So Abby, just to be really clear, anything that gets posted on the chat gets saved, right? And we can access all of these links later.
Yes.
So do you send them out by email to everybody? How does that work?
Krista, I'll defer to you because we do that with the coordinator calls. I'm not sure what we've been doing with the chat copies from this meeting. Do we have them saved in a file or?
Yeah, we save them on the cloud, but we do post on our YouTube the videos. So if anybody had requested the chat for the links, I guess we could just send me an email. I'll actually add it to the chat. And I'd be happy to share.
You know, I just wanted to say I was able to copy and click on it and go to there while this was going on and then save it as a favorite to come back to. So that works too.
I think Donna and
Abby, yes. The article you were discussing, where did you find that? Is there a link?
Yes, BJ posted it and I just put it on. Didn't I put it on the chat? Okay, where did it go?
I don't see it.
Time banking, get things done. Okay, hang on. I'm gonna do it again. Maybe it didn't go. It says to everyone, paste, go. Yeah, okay, so the last thing in the chat is a link to this Catalyst article called St. Pete Time Bank Hopes to Make the World a Better Place 1 hour at a time with a big red clock. And it's just beautifully clear and BJ's quoted. And of course I can hear BJ's voice, which is, yay. So great.
So I just looked at my watch and we're nearly, what is our close time?
We will end the call at 5 o'clock. In the past,
we're nearly there.
In the past, we've left like the last 5 minutes to go to you, Chris, and Edgar for final closing thoughts. And so we still have a few minutes before that time. And I'm wondering if there's anyone here who's been thinking and feeling a little shy. Now's a good chance to ask Catalina or Chris or Edgar, or think about social networks in your time bank. Have you experienced that with an exchange or with a member exchange?
I'm really curious about what the policy of Time Bank is internationally on vaccine status. Ooh. Are time bankers going to help each other regardless of vaccine status?
I'd like to share a story on that. So we have a member in our time bank. I don't know that timebanks.org has an official policy, but in our time bank, we had a member who was really, really wanting to help promote vaccines around the world. And so we said, how can we do this as a time bank? How can we be supportive of you? and maintain a kind of neutrality around people taking stances on important things like this, so that any member could feel that they could take a stance. And so we create, I don't know if I mentioned this last time on the call, but I'll mention it again if I did. We created the Free Speech Corner for our time bank. And anybody who wants to do a campaign or free speech or something that may be about social justice can come to our time bank and say, I would like to do this social justice campaign. And if it meets a few criteria, it is not to harm anybody. It is, we wrote those out and I can share with those. We decided that that's how we would do it. And if 80% of the members on the call say, yes, sounds good, then they get time credits for actually doing that campaign. So we felt really, really happy about that. We felt we were sort of threading the eye of a needle here, allowing members to have very different opinions about what's appropriate, but laying out some rules of the game, and then saying our time bank does open the door to social justice action that individual time bank members can take. So that's what our time bank has decided to do. And we're happy. We're happy with that decision.
Okay, so you're saying that if we're engaged in actions to sure I put this. I mean, there's a lot of people all over the world in the streets now against what's happening in terms of vaccine mandates. So if I wanted to start an activity in terms of that, I can get time credits for it. Is that what you're saying? Oh, by the way, you've frozen. The whole thing is frozen.
Nancy, I think I can speak a little bit just from my experience in our local time bank that, and this really does speak to social networks. And it is one of the most beautiful things about time banks is as people come together with shared beliefs and shared philosophies, they do start to do projects on their own. And if someone came to me when I was organizing our time bank and said, we want to start a group to do X, Y, or Z, will the time bank support it? We always said yes. However, our time bank was always very neutral. So we wouldn't like explode their message everywhere, because then you need to be fair and explode everybody's message. So it was allowed as long as they were respectful. And so that's in my local time bank. So I think it just, not every time bank is the same. There's no official rules or regulations for everybody's time bank. So I would talk to your coordinator or your organizer and say, hey, how can we go about doing this? Because maybe you want to pull more people in from your time bank that have similar views, or maybe even not similar views, which is even more important, to start those good conversations that nobody wants to have.
Okay, that sounds good. Yep. Yep, I can talk to my local time bank. So basically you're leaving it up to people and their personal point of view to say if they want to engage in the project, and but the time credits are still available.
Yes, but it's not compulsory. There's no.
I'm not sure what you mean by compulsory.
No, there's no overarching policy. This, we approve of that, or we approve of that, or we approve of that. It's by time bank from time bank and sharing, as Abby said, and each time bank working out how it would like to go about this.
Okay, so you're leaving it up to local time banks and individuals in the time bank.
Yes.
Okay, good. That's good. That's good. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. That was a great question.
Can I just jump in on that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What I'm a person who's chosen not to get vaccinated, and I know I'm a strong minority. And it's
growing.
Well, I just want to just flag it how it relates to social networking and community for me. And that is a feeling surprising among friends and family, etc., of not belonging simply because of this position.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so if that's a key piece of time bank, I think it's maybe that should be a core criteria by which any individual time bank considers going into any issue, social issue.
Thank you so much for sharing, Angela. That brings us right full circle to what I was saying at the very beginning about belonging and not belonging, and how careful we have to be about these things. And Abby and Catalina's sharing and everything, and all the sharing that we've had, keeps bringing us back to the fact that we must talk. We must talk and listen, listen and talk, give and receive. And it isn't always easy. It is not always easy, but so that was great that you brought that up too. Thank you very much.
So the ability to affirm and to know you're valued for being yourself, and for being part, for wanting to be part of a greater collectivity, because all of us are more than simply ourselves. We are, when we're connected, we are more than ourselves, but that includes the right not to be part of a subgroup. That has, this is not about uniformity. This is about expression of our best impulses.
Okay, I guess I'm looking for something like there's no discrimination. And that's an inclusive stance. So, you know, some people are saying we welcome vaxxed and unvaxxed. That's inclusive. That's on no discrimination, but the governments are actually pushing discrimination.
It's a toughie, this one. Honestly, we could talk for another hour about the ups, downs, ins, outs, and people's lives are at risk and not at risk. And people feel have strong beliefs. And this is really a hard one to come up with a quick label. Honestly, I feel that this is an area where you can only talk it through with the people who are with you. And yeah, it's a tough one.
Well, actually, I see if it was a question of race, there would be no question. It would be non-discriminatory, wouldn't it?
But it's not a question of race. It's a question of...
It is. It is the same thing because governments are trying to establish an apartheid system, vaxxed and unvaxxed. That's what they're trying to establish. So the battle has to be against apartheid.
I'll tell you what, this is such a big conversation. Ah, yes, Catalina.
This might be a question for the time bank coordinator call. I'm not sure, but let me just ask it real quick and see if you have a quick answer for me. So we've been holding time bank markets here where it's like time bank credit markets only, where people are exchanging goods and services like all in the same time period. And we also have a farmer's market that's happening with one of my friends. And so she had everybody, there's a group here called Harvest Moon Private Members Association. So according to them, everybody who is in the Private Members Association could attend things like markets without like any mandates of masks or vaccines because it is a private members association. And so people don't have the right to come into our event to say like this is not allowed or whatever, because we're protected underneath the Private Members Association. And so that was for her market. Now, many of us are the same who go to the time bank market. Would that cover us as well at the time bank market? And might that be something that everybody on this call might check into to be able to offer inclusivity and not worry about repercussions from the government?
Wow. So what you're saying, I'm looking at the clock and I think we're supposed to be closing in 1 minute. You have opened a big question, Nancy. So just how I want to get clear that I'm really getting clear from you. Are you saying that the time bank members say to their members, if you're a member, you can come in regardless of, you don't have to show vaccine or not vaccine? Or...
Absolutely, yes.
Well, we're not doing that yet because I wanted to ask about it. But my friend, who is also a time bank coordinator on this island, she also runs a farmer's market. And
Right.
we like didn't want to have to wear masks or require vaccinations. There's mandates here kind of that are like 10 to 20 people gatherings. But
Right.
then one of the people that comes to the farmers market is like, hey, we just started a private members association exactly for all of this, because none of us rural farmers and people want to have to wear masks or ask for vaccines. So if we all are part of this private members association, when we go to this farmers market and we can show everyone's names and everyone's signed up, then they can't say anything to us. So my question is, if I also had, because many of us are members of that PMA, so if I had that also at my time bank market, like at the sign-in, would that cover the time bank market as well, since all of the members were part of the private members association?
Catalina and Chris, I'm just going to interrupt here real quick, just knowing that it's 1 minute after 5 and we want to be respectful of folks that are on this call for 1 hour. We can hang on for just a few more minutes after the call, but I do want to tell you, Catalina, there has been a bubbling surge of desire for us to talk about these types of things and COVID and pandemic and Zoom calls on the monthly coordinator call. And so just by you bringing this up is telling me, again, you know, this is a big conversation. And even what Nancy was saying, like, we need to talk about it as leaders in our community. How are other people handling it? What's working? What's not working? So I'm just going to put that in the little bucket for a future coordinator call, maybe even in January. You know, we can start the year out with a good COVID discussion. But I want to thank everybody. Chris and Edgar, thank you so much for being here and giving your thoughts on social networks. I do want to say that in December, I'm so excited, we will be starting the first installment of our last core value, respect. And I think we are going to hear some incredible stories, lots of different meanings to the core value, respect. And what I'm really most excited is to hear why and how Edgar created that core value. So without spoiling it, Edgar, you have to come back in December and tell us why you created that core value, because I misunderstood it for about 2 years. I'm really embarrassed to tell you all that, but I did. And now that I understand it, it means the world to me. It's maybe my favorite core value. So I hope you can all join us. I'm going to go ahead and let you hang up. Some of us will stay on. Krista, if you need to go, we could stop the recording. I will stay on for another 10 minutes if we just want to have some final conclusions. But thank you, everyone. Happy holidays, and we'll see you in a month.
Thank you.
This was great. This was
Thank
great.
you, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you for receiving my question.
And yeah.